Good day, everyone. Welcome to Deku Universe. Today we are beginning part 1 of What If Deku Inherited White Tiger Quirk. The fanfiction is created by Dragon Gam 3 on fanfiction.net. Now let's begin. Izuku, age 6. Izuku has just woken up and finds himself in a strange situation. First of all, his bedsheet and blanket were ripped apart. He is now kind of thankful that his mom had forced him to sleep without his special all-night blanket to wash it. Secondly, he had a dead chicken in his mouth. Its feathers were scattered in the room. But the most surprising part was that it didn't taste bad at all, and Izuku kind of enjoyed the taste of it. Inko simply fainted as she entered Izuku's room. After Inko had forcefully cleaned Izuku up, as he was also covered in feathers and dried chicken BLD, both sat down in the living room to think about what happened. Izuku was declared quirkless 2 years ago, and his quirk had shown no signs of showing up to this point. Inko was happy that her son had a quirk, even if they both weren't quite sure what it is at the moment. Izuku was thinking hard about what could have triggered it, and thought back to an event that had taken place a day prior. An event he didn't tell his mom about out of fear of what she and Ani Mizuki would do to Kaken. Still, he told his mom because he thought it could have something to do with his quirk. Flashback. Izuku was playing in the sandpit as he heard some other kids scream. So he got up and walked to the others. There he saw it. His childhood friend Bakugo Katsuki was making fun of someone again. He, along with his 2 friends, were standing in front of a girl with a horn quirk. "Look at her," the black-haired boy said. "Are you a demon?" he asked the girl as he pushed her over, resulting in her landing on her. But she looked scared at the 3 boys in front of her, tears welling up in her eyes. "Ha ha! Look at her. She's going to cry," the brown-haired boy said as few tears began streaming down her cheeks. "Oh, don't try to act like you're crying, demon. Everyone knows that demons don't have emotions, so you were just pretending," he said, and Bakugan began to snicker. Izuku, seeing that, decided to help even if he was quirkless. This behavior was just wrong. "Stop," he called out to the 3 boys as he ran between them and the girl with his arms spread to both sides to signal them to stop. "It is wrong to hurt someone. Leave her alone," he said with a fire behind his eyes. The boys looked at each other and then back at Izuku and began to laugh at him. "Ha! No way, this is the funniest joke of the day, ha ha ha," Bakugo called out as he laughed at Izuku before him. "How will a quirkless freak like you try to even stand up to the next All Might?" Bakugo asked, small explosions cracking on his hands. "Why, you will never be the next All Might. Do you think All Might would go around and make fun of other people?" Izuku screamed in his face with all his might. The girl had stopped crying as she hid behind a tree in the park and peeked to look at what was going to happen. Bakugo then suddenly punched Izuku in the face, knocking him over as he didn't expect that, but neither did the others around them. "What knows a quirkless reject like you about being a hero? You want to tell me, the next All Might, what a hero is? Don't make me laugh," he said as he began to kick the on the ground lying Izuku. The 2 other boys then quickly joined in. The girl hid behind a tree to not be seen by them, but she didn't want to leave Izuku either as he had rescued her from a similar fate. The boys kicked Izuku for what felt like hours, but one of the boys called out, "Hey, this is getting boring," he said, and the other agreed. "Yeah, you are right. Let's not waste more time on this quirkless reject," Bakugo said. He then turned on last time to Izuku. "And Deku, stop getting in my way." And then they left. The girl then quickly came out of her hiding spot and ran to Izuku to check on him. "Hey, are you all right?" she asked as she looked at his injuries. Thank you for saving me," she said as she bowed to Izuku. "Ugh." Izuku groaned as he stood up and smiled at her. "No need to thank me. That is what heroes do," he declared as she jumped at him and hugged him. "Ow!" Izuku called out as she quickly let go of him. "Still thank you. What is your name?" she asks, blushing slightly. "Oh, my name is Izuku. Midoriya Izuku." "Ah, thank you, Izuku," she said, but then noticed that it was already late. "I would stay, but I need to go home. My parents said something about a surprise they have for me. I should head home too. My mom will worry when I stay out too long." And so both got up and went home. Neither had noticed that Izuku's wounds were already healed. He only later realizes that he never got her name. Flashback end. To say that Inko was unhappy about what Bakugo had done was an understatement. She considered him her nephew, and Mitsuku was like a sister to her. But she decided to let it go for now and instead focuses on Izuku's quirk. "Hey, sweetie, what you did was really brave," Inko says as she smiles at him, causing Izuku to blush at her compliment. "Let's go change you into some comfortable clothes and then drive to the hospital to check out your quirk," she says with a smile, and Izuku nods. So afterward they drove to the hospital and explained what had happened. Inko also explains that Izuku was tested and the doctor who tested him had said he is quirkless. Sorry if that sounds weird, but was the young man properly tested? The young man at the reception asks the two, and Inko looks at Izuku, who thinks shortly. I only know that I should lay on a table with a heavy blanket over me, and only my feet and head were not covered. After that, he guided me back to Mom. Izuku explains, and the young man just shakes his head. Both look confused at him, and he explains. "You see, this man was a charlatan. This thing with the extra toe joint is simply a myth. Many quirks don't affect the body on that level, and some people simply can't read an X-ray. So we have many cases in which a child hurts or even kills someone with their quirk because they think they don't have one." The man explains, and both mother and son look wide-eyed at him. "We will bring the young man here immediately to a real quirk doctor to check his quirk, so you don't need to worry anymore, Midoriya-san," the man said with a smile that calmed them both down. "Please take a seat in the waiting area, and we will call your number when he is ready." He then gives Inko a SDRP of paper with the number 1942. Both then sat down in the waiting area and waited for their number to be called. Izuku took a bit of paper and a few pencils and began to draw a few pictures for his hero costume, while Inko watched him with a smile and texted Mitsuki about what Katsuki did yesterday in the afternoon. She also texted her that she was with Izuku at the hospital and the Dr. Tsubasa was a charlatan as he did only an X-ray and nothing else to test Izuku on a quirk. So Izuku having a quirk has a high chance of being real. After 30 minutes of waiting they were called. Izuku gave his pictures of All Might to his mother. It is a remarkably great picture. It is All Might standing in an avenue in his signature pose with both arms on his hips. The trees were golden, red, orange, and brown with bits of green in between to signal that it was autumn, along with the fact that All Might himself wore the silly-looking red scarf and red ear warmers. The street he was standing on was a red brick street with many leaves all over it. Inko knew that her son would love to draw later on more and decided to note it down to buy later on paper and pencils for him. This was the first time Izuku had drawn anything since the doctor had declared him quirkless. It had shattered his world. A world where everyone was special and everyone had the chance to do something great. So when he was essentially told that his dream was to never come, his world shattered. So to see that his world began to heal was a good sign. It would never be like the one he saw before his diagnosis, but maybe it will help him along the way. They reached the office of the doctor and both entered. The doctor is a tall woman with long brown hair and has blue/gray eyes. Her clothes include a white lab coat. Underneath that she wears a black turtleneck sweater that is tucked into her green skirt. She also wears gray knee-high socks and black shoes with a small heel. The male nurse that had guided them here introduced her. "This is Dr. Takumanui, Midoriya-san, and Takuma-sensei. This is the Midoriya family. Midoriya Inko and her son Midoriya Izuku." Takuma then took a step forward. "Hello, Midoriya-san and Izuku-kun," she said as they then walked into her office. "Please follow me." The nurse then left, and they took all seats around the table in the room. She then explained, "Okay, first of all, it is great that you came today. I have planned a vacation starting tomorrow, and I wouldn't be available for the next 2 to 3 weeks, and 1 month without knowing one's quirk could be dangerous. You see, my quirk allows me to read," she says while doing air quotes, "what a person's quirk is when I am around them. I would still like to wait a moment for a more precise read on the little guy's quirk. Do you have any questions in the meantime?" She asks with a smile as Izuku's eyes shine at the mention of quirk. He looks at his mother in a questioning look, and she nods amused. So I would like to ask a bit more about your quirk." Izuku stammers out as he tries to hide his nervousness. "Sure, go right ahead," Takuma offered, also amused by Izuku's nature. He was still young and acting really cute. "What is your quirk called?" What does it feel like when others are around? Can you turn it on and off? Do you get a migraine when too many people are around you? What does around mean? Could you read someone's quirk if you are, for example, leaning at the same wall only on opposite sides, or do you require them to see him? If yes to the second, do cameras work? Could you, for example, lean on a wall with a person on the opposite side, and you could read his quirk by simply looking at a camera screen where you see him and you know that he is on the opposite side? Izuku mutters out his questions and then blushes as he notices that he was muttering again and tries to hide his face in his arms as he lets his head sink on the table. Takuma is looking astonished at Izuku, as all his questions show that he has a great head on his shoulders, and as far as the reading from his quirk goes, are none of that from a quirk. Simply put, he is just exceptionally intelligent. She then smiles gently and puts a head on his hair and ruffles it. No need to hide. Those were truly intelligent questions, and none has anything to do with your quirk. She tells him softly as he pecks out of his hiding place and looks at her. She then continues, I will answer them in a short moment, but first, let me tell you, don't sell yourself for short. Your intelligence has nothing to do with your quirk, and a quirk isn't everything in the world. So use your head. Always remember that. She orders Izuku, and he nods heavily at her word while making a serious face. Inko is just moved by her actions, as she still remembers the meeting with the charlatan Tsubasa. Takuma-sensei is a truly great person to give my Aizu new hope with a few words that couldn't be more true. Inko thinks to herself as she observes the scene. She knew that Izuku would do great in whatever he would end up doing, and that is why she apologized to Izuku for not giving him a quirk. She saw it as her fault that had blocked Izuku the many ways he would have had to greatness if he had a quirk. Okay, and to your questions, I'll try to answer them in order. So let's start with the name of my quirk. It is called empathy. It feels like I would download something into my brain. Yeah, I can turn it off, and I unquestionably get a migraine when too many people are around. I will answer the next few together. Around means they have to be in the same room as me. So that is a no to your theory with the wall. She then thinks shortly. On a different note, I can focus on someone to get a greater understanding of his quirk, quite like what I am doing just at the moment to you. Your quirk is rather complex, so I want to get it all before I give you incorrect information. She explains and then smiles. I think I got everything for the moment, and I will explain what your quirk is shortly, but do you two have any questions beforehand? Both signaled her no, so she began. Okay, let's start from the top, but I forget to mention something about my quirk. It can only read the current state of your quirk. With training, or simply by chance can new powers pop up later. She explains, and Izuku nods at her words, signaling that he understood what she had said. The main aspect of your quirk lets you transform into a white tiger. This transformation could be partial, meaning only your arms, for example, or completely, meaning you transform into a full tiger with white fur. She had only listed one aspect of Izuku's quirk, but he was already over the moon at how cool it sounded. Both adults noticed that and giggled lightly at the sight of the sparkling 6-year-old. Even his eyes had stars in them, and Inko knew this reaction only too well. It is the same reaction he has when he sees anything related to All Might. Okay, now on to the sub-aspects of your quirk. It increases your regeneration ratio, meaning that you will heal faster and can go longer without food or water than a normal human. The next point that is listed is that your bones will become titanium. But this process will take up to 6 to 8 years to finish. So your muscles will have enough time to adjust to the added weight. Your reflexes will also increase, and the last point is an increase in muscle density and flexibility. She then finishes with closing her eyes and going to list she had gathered about Izuku's quirk down mentally. And you can change the size of the fully transformed tiger form about as large as a normal house cat up to the size of a bus. Yeah. Izuku cheers with his arms risen about his head. Oich. So I probably sleepwalked in the night and transformed into a tiger. He deducts as he sets the, to him presented, logic puzzle logically together. Yeah, you're probably right, but that still doesn't explain where the chicken came from. It didn't look like you had gone out of your room at the night. Inko recalls the sight and nearly fainted again. Seeing her son covered in BLD was not the nicest sight she had experienced. We can worry about that when we get back home, Izuku says, and then turns to Takuma. Takuma-sensei, do you know how I transform into a tiger? Izuku asked, and she nods. She then motions Izuku to come closer, and she then whispers the way to transform into his ear. Oh, haha. Thank you, Takuma-sensei, he says as he jumps up and stands in the middle of the room. Izuku then closed his eyes, and white markings began to appear on his body. The markings then connect with each other, and white fur grows. Izuku glows white as his body structure changes to that of a tiger, and the fur keeps on growing with black strips in between. His hair changes color to white. His hands and feet become tiger paws, and he grows a tail. His clothes then rip apart as he grows into a fully grown white tiger. His eyes, now slit and golden in color with a green outer ring, are looking around the room. He then opens his mouth. That is so cool. The child's voice sounded from the open mouth of the tiger that didn't move while he was talking. Both Nui and Inko are surprised at Izuku's growth. They measured him later, and he is 3.40 meters long from nose to tail, and he weighs an astonishing 340 kg, and all of that is purry muscles and no fat. Both know fully that Quirk subverted, if not completely ignore the laws of physics, but to a such high extent was a frit time for both of them. Nui had seen many Quirks as a Quirk consultor / Quirk doctor, but this type of Quirk was the first time for her. Nui thought long about the name of Izuku's Quirk and its Quirk registration entry and came up with a middle way. While both Inko and Izuku were busy admiring Izuku's tiger form. Izuku and I think I have a name and a description for the Quirk, Nui said as she handed them a notepad. Inko began to read out loud. Quirk, white, allows Izuku Midoriya to transform either partially or completely into a white tiger. Also has a healing factor and enhances physical abilities. Doesn't this miss some parts? Inko asks and Nui nods. Yeah, I have deliberately left parts ambiguous. A detailed Quirk discretion can be also dangerous. Nui explains both women, then turn to Izuku. Why are you looking at me? He asks confused. It is your Quirk, sweetie, and you have to like the name. Inko just deadpants, and Izuku then turns to look at Nui. She just nods at him. Okay, I think that sounds nice. I will keep it, Izuku declares as he suddenly looks around and gasps before he hides his face in his paws. What's wrong, sweetest / Izuku-kun? They together asked the giant tiger in the room that was now slightly blushing and mumbling something, still hiding his face in his paws. What did you say? Again, Nui and Inko asked together. Izuku buried his head even deeper into his paws and then mumbled again, this time so that both could understand him. I don't know how to change back, and also my clothes have been destroyed by my first transformation. Inko then looked around the room and spotted the shreds that used to be Izuku's clothing. Inko pats his back and notices how soft his fur is. Nui just began to laugh at that, as this wasn't the first time either that something like this had happened. But don't worry, Izuku. I had many others here that had done something similar, so no need to be embraced. She told him. It didn't help Izuku, and he would still like it better to sink into the ground out of shame. -1 week after the visiting the doctor. Numerous things have changed since Izuku's doctor visit. First of all, Izuku has learned some more things about his Quirk. He could decide how big the tiger he transforms into would be. But he also learned that it could be dangerous as he transformed into a tiger cub and was nearly hugged to death by his mother. The next thing that changed is that Izuku isn't bullied anymore. He also promised himself that he wouldn't let himself get bullied anymore. If they need to make fun of him, then, so be it. He is a tiger now. Some might even say that a tiger is more badass than some little explosions. There's also a shift in tone from the teachers that didn't go unnoticed by Izuku, but he decided to ignore that for now. Another thing that has changed was Bakugu's behavior. He was still loud, rude, and has the sensitivity of a sledgehammer, but he has completely stopped bullying others and even made an effort to be a bit more friendly towards others. He has also stopped calling Izuku Deku and has simply started to call him by his name. Oh, and they also have reported the charlatan Tsubasa to the police and even started a lawsuit against him. That was well on its way to ruin him. And lastly, Izuku couldn't find the girl he had helped anywhere. He had asked the teacher, and he had told him that her parents had moved, but he wasn't allowed to tell him where they moved. But at least he learned her name, Ryuzaki Era. Izuku, age 14. It has been a rather uneventful 6 years. He was now again friends with Katsuki, and they also were friendly rivals in their competition. Who gets to become the #1 hero? They even trained together. Izuku had managed to get his muttering under control, and also had picked up a few habits from Bakugo, so he didn't bother to remember everyone's name, and simply goes with the nicknames Bakugo gives them, and he also curses now and then. Bakugo has in return begun to be a bit more friendly towards others. They had trained a lot during the years, and both had hit their limits multiple times and have done everything to overcome them. Bakugo is now 173 centimeters tall and has a slim but muscular build. Izuku is 171 centimeters tall and has a larger muscle mass than Bakugo, but he isn't overly bulky so that he can still move freely. Izuku was sitting in class, like every other day. His life wasn't special, and neither was this day. The teacher was going on and on and on, but mostly about irrelevant things. You know how school is like, especially with a teacher that is just plain boring. His classmates weren't that special aider. Izuku could see potential in some of them, but quirks like finger elongating weren't meant to be heroes or villains for that matter. It takes ingenuity and good ideas to make them into something beneficial. Also, not everyone can be a hero. That is a simple fact. The teacher then caught Izuku's attention as he stopped speaking for once to take a deep breath. Come on, class. You are middle school seniors. The teacher was screaming at the class in full volume. IT is time. You all should seriously think about your future. He continued while waving papers in his hand. I will hand out these printouts on your desired life course. Then he suddenly starts a grin. But what does it matter? You all want to be heroes anyway. He turns away from the students, looks at the board, and throws the papers in the air while the class behind him erupts in chaos while all try to show off their amazing quirks. Izuku was feeling rather good that he had opened Bakugo's eyes about the school and how they had tried to gain either favor to be mentioned, maybe sometimes in the future when they would become real pro heroes. If not, he would have undoubtedly used this opportunity to set the others even more apart from him. Izuku decided to not bother anymore and continued to design his hero costume. He had a few good ideas for nature, but costumes will be revealed later. He had also started to write a few ideas for Bakugo and Universal Support Gear down, along with drawings of those. His skill in drawing has improved massively over the last years, so much so that he even sold commissions. Some of those even have landed on official merch, after a little lawsuit, even with his permission. The money he gained through does he used to make his mother's life a little bit easier. His mother is another story after their real successful lawsuit. She decided to use the money and bought them a house. Not a normal one, but a whole apartment house in the center of Tokyo. She then resigned from her job and simply invested all of her time in the management of the house. It was one of her best decisions as she was making more money in a month from the 10 apartments, 2 per floor, than she had made in her old job in a year, and that was after the deduction of the service cost from the money she got. They still live in Mizudafu, but Inko had bought a house that is in a better location. After the school, the rest of the day had been rather boring. Izuku and Bakugo had gone separate ways as he wanted to go to the arcade with a few friends, if you can even call them that, as neither of them knew their names. Izuku was taking the long way home. He then stopped under a bridge and was writing things down when he was suddenly ripped out of his thoughts by the loud metallic sound of a manhole cover hitting the ground next to him. He instinctively jumped away from the sound and turned around to see a slimy mass swelling out of the sewers. The mass then slowly took a humanoid shape, and Izuku could even make out her eyes. The thing then spoke up. Well, look what we have here. The thing spoke up in a masculine voice, marking him down as male in Izuku's head. A medium-sized invisibility cloak. Okay, I take offense to that. I train hard every day, so don't you tell me I am only medium-sized when I even wear an L-sized shirt, Izuku states, clearly annoyed by the villain. Oh, be you who? Don't wet your pants about it, the sludge villain says. But hey, you're a large-sized invisibility cloak, better? He asks with sarcasm dripping from his voice. Yes, thank you very much, Izuku says with just as much sarcasm in his voice. So what do you have, Dash? But he could finish speaking as he had to dodge a sludged tendril that the villain shot at him. Izuku dodged with a half backflip so that he lands on his hands and uses them to catapult himself further away from the villain. Hey, it is unfair to attack someone before he has finished his speech. Haven't you ever seen an anime? Izuku asks in the hope of distracting the villain a bit. But he continued to attack, either with simple tendrils or flinging his whole body at Izuku. Oh, for F's sake, stand still, DM in it. The villain cries out frustrated that he hasn't hit Izuku yet, even though he would also try to attack from multiple directions at the same time. Come on, please be a good victim and let yourself be captured. Okay, how stupid are you? I mean, nobody would let himself be captured for free. Izuku counters as he dodges another goo tendril, and both come to a halt under an underpass. Izuku then jumped forward and hit one of his eyes, causing the villain to lose focus at the sudden pain, and he put his hands on his eyes in hope of lessening the pain. But suddenly the villain is hit by a strong gust of wind that blasts him into many small pieces that scatter around the underpass. Ha ha! Looks like I came in the right moment, young boy, even if it seems like you had everything under your control. Ha ha ha. The newly arrived hero, who is none other than the #1 hero, All Might, called out to Izuku in his typical high-energy/loud voice. I thank you for your helping me by delaying the villain, but I must leave now. See ya, and hopefully you use your abilities in the future for the good. All Might advised him while collecting the villain and then readied himself to jump away. I hope I see you in the future as a pro hero, he said as he jumped away, generating a burst of wind that knocked Izuku on his butt. Izuku thought about what to say at such a moment, but he couldn't get a constrained thought out because of All Might's compliment, the compliment of his idol nonetheless. His mouth decided then for him, and he let out the intelligent answer to that. Wow, he simply states in a low voice as he stares at the space where All Might was standing. He didn't know how to react at such a moment. All Might had been his idol for as long as he could remember. Even if other heroes have gained space in his room, Izuku still keeps his All Might shrine, and now his greatest idol has told him that not only he thinks he will become a hero, but that he will wait for the day that happens. Izuku managed after about 5 minutes to calm down enough to simply walk home, but not before taking the manhole cover and placing it where it belongs, as an open manhole could be quite dangerous. So he then simply walked home and greeted his mother. She was already home and was preparing food for their dinner. She told him that dinner would be ready in about 30 minutes. She's making bammy goring. Izuku then goes into his room and puts his school stuff away. He is very grateful that they hadn't gotten any new homework today and that none was due tomorrow. So he simply laid on his bed and gathered his thoughts about school, about his encounter with All Might, simply put about his day and how it went. Izuku does this every day to have a clearer mind, and also because he hadn't lost control of his own quirk one time and had nearly killed his best friend. Flashback. Izuku is 10 years old, and he had an especially exhausting day. He couldn't tell how or why it was so exhausting, but everything just somehow piled upon him. He was having trouble with even the most common social interactions. Somehow, all of his clothes he had managed to put on somehow wrong. He is exhausted but still is restless, and his muscles are arching even though he hadn't trained hard yesterday. Izuku doesn't know what is going on or why even the interactions with the teacher or his best friend Katsuki feel like he's climbing a mountain, but he is still dedicated to simply push on with his day. He was determined enough to push on. Katsuki and a few others noticed that Izuku was behaving differently from normal, but decided to not bother about it. Maybe he just had a bad day, or he was simply feeling under the weather, as it was quite a hot day. In the break, it got worse. Izuku stayed in the room for only 5 minutes before he took his lunch and marched to the roof. The voices of the many students kept irritating him. He somehow could hear them all like they were all standing right next to him. He even asked Katsuki if the others talked louder than normal. But the 5 minutes he stayed felt like hours to him. Katsuki followed him closely onto the roof where he saw Izuku standing by the railing and he was breathing heavily. Katsuki is a bit on edge by Izuku's strange behavior, as he also left without saying anything, but decides to first try to help his friend. So he then walked up to him and put his hand on his left shoulder, but before he could say a word, Izuku's right arm transformed into a giant tiger claw, and Izuku swipes it at him, nearly hitting him, but Katsuki manages to dodge backward as he saw it transforming. Izuku quickly notices that he had attacked his best friend, but before he can apologize, both hear the loud clang of metal hitting the ground. They turn and see the railing Izuku had leaned on was cut, but Izuku's claw. Izuku then looks back to Katsuki and simply decides to run away. He didn't speak for 1 week with Katsuki after the incident, as he was too ashamed of himself to even talk to his friend. They would seldom look gazes, but Izuku would quickly look away out of shame. This would go on for a week before at a lunch break, Katsuki marches to Izuku. "Come with me, demon nerd," he says as he grabs Izuku by the back of his uniform and pulls him out of the classroom and onto the roof. There he throws Izuku onto the roof, and he blocks the door so that he can't flee. "So now you will tell me what is wrong with you," he said while glaring at Izuku. "I don't know what you mean," Izuku exclaims while looking away. "Oh yeah," Katsuki says as he approaches Izuku and takes him by the front of his shirt. "Then look me in the eyes and say that," he says, but Izuku keeps his head low. Katsuki then looks at the railing of the roof, and a light bulb goes on. "Oh, so you are ashamed for using your quirk?" he yells, and Izuku mumbles something. "What? Speak F up, nerd." "I said I am sorry," Izuku exclaims. "I could have easily killed you with my claws hadn't you dodged in time. Did you see what I did to the railing?" He yells at Katsuki while pointing at the railing. It was still cleanly sliced, and Izuku was becoming angry with Katsuki for not understanding it. Flashback end. Izuku shook his head at the memories. It has been nearly 4 years since then, and he had sworn to never lose control of his quirk again or hurt a friend. After they yelled at each other for a while, they talked normally for a bit, and their friendship stayed strong. It was a good feeling to have such a good friend. Even when he could be rather blunt with his words, he always has good intentions behind it. At least the blunt things he said to Izuku. He then was called by his mom that dinner was ready. Even before Izuku opened his door, he could smell the food his mom had cooked, and it was incredible like always. They both then sat on the couch to eat, as both wanted to watch the news. And now to our news out of Mizuku. Today, around 1600 hours, was a junior high student was attacked by a D-rank villain with a sludge quirk. According to reports, he was already once captured by All Might, but he had managed to escape him in one of his jumps. He later arrived at the scene along with Mount Lady, Kimui Woods, and Backdraft. All Might quickly dealt with the villain, but the junior high student had kept him long enough in check so that he didn't cause any damage. The heroes have requested that neither his face nor his quirk will be published to protect him. But All Might has given us a statement to his actions. "I can't await the new generation to rise, as they will even beat me. That's not all. He is the second one, as I have met another boy that nearly beat him had I arrived a bit later." The news continued, but Inko and Izuku looked at each other after the report about the so-called sludge villain incident. They continued to eat after the report, Inko stunned by the fact that her son had met All Might and didn't ask for an autograph. If he had done that, he would have presented it by now as a family heirloom. Izuku, meanwhile, was going through the possibility of who could have been the junior high student that was attacked. "Mom, I think it was Katsuki that was attacked by the villain," Izuku says out of the blue to his mother as he was clearing the table. "Oh, how did you come up to that conclusion?" she asked, looking confused at him. "Well, how many other junior high students that train seriously to become a hero and can beat me?" Izuku asks his mother rhetorically. "Nah, but to be serious, he just texted me when I was in the kitchen," Izuku says while he grins at her. Inko just giggles at that. "I hope everything is okay with him?" she asks him. Yes, his surrounding perception had massively improved in the mock battles we usually do at the Takoba Beach Park, Izuku tells her. The villain was in a soda bottle. All Might had put him in, and Katsuki kicked the bottle away as he was walking down the street, and that loosened the cap enough for the villain to break free. He explains and takes a seat next to her on the couch again. Katsuki dodged the attack of the villain, and he told his friend to call the police while he distracted the villain. He then noticed that his explosions didn't do anything, and he couldn't risk punching him because his body was made out of sludge. So he kept his distance and would use his quirk to shoot smoke in his face to distract him long enough until the heroes arrive. Izuku told her, and Inko just listens to the tale of her nephew betting a villain. Tell him that he did a good job for me. She asks him, and Izuku agreed. Meanwhile, the Bakugas had told Katsuki the story of how Izuku had encountered the villain before him, and how he also kept him at bay until All Might arrived. Chat Katsuki/Izuku. Man Tiger. Props for my mom for keeping the villain at bay until the heroes arrived. Thumbs up. King Dynamite. Props for my parents for doing the same. Boom. King Dynamite. Meet at 5 at the beach? Man Tiger. Yeah, sounds good. -5:00 Takoba Beach Park. Hey nerd. Bakugu called out to Izuku as he walked up to him. Good to see ya. He is wearing a simple pair of black shorts and a black t-shirt with an explosion on it. Yeah. So, is that about the villain, as we always meet in the evening on Saturdays? Izuku asked the blonde who nodded in confirmation. He is wearing an open lime green tracksuit jacket. Underneath it, a white t-shirt with the Kanji 4 t-shirt on it and dark green tracksuit shorts. Yeah, I needed to get out of my system before it nags on me the entire day or even longer. And I also think my best friend needs someone to talk about what happened to him. In person. Bakugo tells Izuku, and he nods. But first I need to ask, why do you keep those F-Troll t-shirts? Huh, was Izuku's intelligent response as he looked at it. Oh, I like it and you're the one talking, are my life. Izuku responded, and Bakugo simply TSKS. And to your other question, I think so, but you should start first. Izuku then smirked at him. I mean, All Might even praise you in his comment about what had happened. They both then sat down on the sand with their backs on the boundary wall of the beach. Haha, nerd. Very funny. He said, sarcasm dripping from his voice. But it was really something else. To train with you, or to fight a real villain, is different. He then let out a sigh. I know. Izuku told him and made a short break. The feeling from fight an opponent who wouldn't back down and aims to kill you. Izuku also sighed. We have still a lot to learn. I mean, we have neither the right mindset nor the experience to fight villains and rescue people. He then smiles at Bakugo. But hey, that is why we want to join UA in the first place. It isn't like they will throw us into a battle simulation with our classmates on day one. Okay, Izuku. Bakugo said as he stands up. So I will declare now the only course of action that is going to happen. We won't train together until we both make it into you. Faye. Am I clear, nerd? He asks as Izuku also stands up with a smile on his face. Oh yes, great God King explosion murder dynamite. Izuku says sarcastically as he bows slightly to Bakugo, who freezes as he hears the name. How do you know that name? He asks in a low voice. It was written text to your last costume design that you had given me to look over. Izuku answers simply. So, as a tip from a friend, don't write embarrassing things you want to show others. You know what, nerd, I don't even care. Make the adjustments for my costume design, and then give me a list with your name ideas. Bakugo all, but ordered Izuku, and he gave simply thumbs up, before Bakugo left to go home and eat breakfast with his parents. Izuku then walked onto the beach and began working on the trash. He had already gone out and left his mom a note saying he would train with Bakugo, so why not use the time he now had? So Izuku began to sort through the trash. Most of the piles are simply old electronic devices that were simply thrown out here. Some things even look quite good. Itchy why? He heard a female voice yell out to him. I need those. Izuku then turned around and saw a pink-haired girl at the bottom of the pile of trash he was standing on. Yes, you. She shouts this time at him and confuses him. Izuku decides to simply jump down before she can do anything. So he jumps and lands next to her. Hello. I am Midoriya Izuku. So what do you need? He asks politely, but before he knew what was going on, he was felled up and down by the girl. This wouldn't have been too bad if she didn't press her entire body on his with little regard for her rather large assets. So she pressed them rather closely on him, causing Izuku to simply stop everything. Wah! Was the only coherent thought he could think. You You are quite buff," she said as she felt him up. AHA, you would do a great test subject," she exclaims as she separates herself from him. She was about to drag him away before she was stopped, as Izuku was physically a bit stronger than her, even if she has a strong grip that would have broken an untrained person's hand. Okay, wait a moment. At least tell me your name and what you plan on doing," Izuku basically demanded as he turned her around, looking her in the eyes. She first looks confused at him, as if he had just asked the dumbest question she had ever heard. But his eyes made her reconsider calling it out, and she decided to simply answer his question. "Okay, I am Hatsum May, and I want to make babies with you," she says while still looking into his eyes without getting red or anything. Izuku's face, in contrast, exploded in red as the blush became stronger. "W?" he asks out weakly as he takes a few steps back from her. She again looked at him like he is the dumbest SHD in the universe. "I want to make babies with you," she says again with an absolute neutral voice and a straight face. That was sadly too much for Izuku, and he fainted as he falls, luckily, on the sand. In an alleyway, not too far away, a little girl with white hair and a horn is running through an alleyway as she is being followed by two men with birdbeak masks. She ran as fast as she could to avoid being captured, and she's doing good escaping them. As they come to a crossing in the alley, she feints to go to the right, but in the last moment runs left, and they both overshoot her as they crash into the wall of the right alley. This isn't her first attempt at running away from them, as she wishes only to be free from those bad men that held her captive. She learns with each attempted, and has now gone much further than in her other attempts. She then shoots out of the dark alley and onto the sidewalk of the main street. She looks shortly around before running to the right, again deeper in the city and away from the beach. The people on the sidewalk simply made a path for her as the two men followed the small child. Nobody was making even an attempt to stop them or slow them down. Her opportunity presented itself in form of another dark alley as a man stepped into the path that was made and attempted to stop the two men. So the little girl runs into the alley and quickly hides inside a big dumpster. The dumpster still had a little bit of air between its lid and the wall, so she could see outside. Despised her quick hiding and the fact that only one man had tried to stop them, it did take quite some time before they came running into the alleyway. The first one called out as he saw that there was again an intersection not too far from the entrance of the alleyway. They both then run up to the intersection to see if they can see her running. We lost her," the second had said this time. "The boss guy is going to kill us if we don't catch her again." "Okay, I know things look bad, look bad? Your mom looks bad. This is a catastrophe." "Shut up. You're going to the left, I will go to the right, and then we will catch her." With their plan being made, they both run their respective way, not noticing even the dumpsters they had completely missed. After the internal shock that her little trick actually worked on them, came the little girl out of the dumpster. Her white/gray gown had now disgusting green and brown marks on it, but she didn't mind. She was free for the time being and goes back onto the main street, where she crosses the street and then runs in the direction of the beach. She feels the people stare at her, but she doesn't mind. She then turns into a back road to avoid people. She then turns a corner and bumps into a woman in a traditional cheapao with a pale green scale trim around her shoulders. She has blonde hair and looks down at her before crouching to be on the little girl's eye level. "Everything okay, little hatchling?" she asks with a warm smile. She then sees how scared, but also relieved the girl looks. "No need to worry. I am the Dragoon hero, Ryukyu, a pro hero who saves people who are in danger." Suddenly, two other people with bird masks turn the corner, and the little girl quickly stands up before she starts to run away again. The men quickly gave chase to her. The pro hero then also chased them to save the girl, as she had seen her face, and she looked like she was running for her life. Ryukyu then quickly transforms into a dragon as she runs. She does basically a running start as she flaps her majestic wing to get airborne. She accelerates and then grabs the little girl before she smashes the men into the ground with her tail. Flapping with her wings again gives them quite a height as they continue to speed up, Ryukyu still holding the little girl in her hands. Back to Izuku. Izuku just woke up from his beauty sleep. He then remembers why he had fainted in the first place and looks quickly around and sees that Mei had left, which kind of relieved him, but also made him a little bit sad. She seems like a nice person, but he couldn't do anything now, so he stood up and checked himself if everything was still in place. He breathed a sigh of relief as he noticed that everything was in its place. He turned and saw a wired flash of light over the city. First, he thought that it was just someone messing with their quirk, but then he saw a thing falling from the sky. He then quickly climbed a trash pile to get a better view and saw that it was somewhat human-shaped. Not wanting to take chances, Izuku quickly transformed his legs, destroying another pair of his red shoes by this chance, and a tail formed as he jumped up on a few houses they were going to crash into. Luckily it was the older one holding the little girl close so that Izuku could catch them. He also transformed his arms so that they're caught in fluffy fur to soften the impact further. Izuku landed with them in his arms in a nearby street. He put them down to look for injuries, but found none. But he noticed that the girl that was roughly his age was wearing a cheapao that resembled that of the dragoon hero, Ryukyu, but it was quite a bit too big for her. He nearly died from the blush he got as he noticed that. He quickly threw his tracksuit jacket over her. She also looks like a younger version of her too. Izuku thought as he looked at her again. "Hey Midori," called a familiar voice out as a pink flash turned the corner. "Why did you run away from me?" Mei called out as she runs up to Izuku. She then looks at the blonde teen and the little silver/white-haired girl. "Who are those two?" she asks him. Izuku just shakes his head at her antics. Luckily, he isn't thinking about her prior offer because he would have fainted if he did. Those two just came falling from the sky. He told her truthfully, "I have seen them falling and my hero instinct, as my friend calls it, kicked in and I run to rescue them." He then looked at Mei. "Oh, and please call me just Izuku if you can't remember my last name." Mei just looked at him and then looked at the two females laying on the ground. I would say you did a fine job, seeing as both of them are still in one piece and aren't bloody puddles on the street." She then looked at the blonde one. The blonde one looks like this dragon hero." Mei exclaims, "Yeah, I also thought so." Izuku said, "Could she be your secret love child?" "Nah," he thinks before turning to look at Mei. "Hey Hatsum-san, could you please carry the little girl while I carry the blonde one to the nearest hospital?" "Okay, but you owe me one," she declared, and he decided to simply go with it. He wanted to make sure they both were okay. Hospital. It was a rather slow day for the people in the emergency room. There were a few people with smaller injuries, but nothing major. Then suddenly a green-haired boy and a pink-haired girl bust through the door. The boy is carrying a blonde girl in princess style, while the pink-haired girl is carrying a small child. "Excuse me," Izuku called out as he reached the counter. A nurse was by them, and he began to explain what had happened. "My name is Midoriya Izuku, and I have caught those two here out of the air as they were falling out of the sky. Both were unconscious and my friend and I are worried about them." Izuku began, and the nurse quickly called a doctor. She ordered that both were to get a checkup and told Izuku and made a wait in the waiting area. As they sat in the waiting area, both texted their families so that they wouldn't worry about them, and they also exchanged numbers. They waited for about 30 minutes before they were called. They were told they were fine, but would still be unconscious for a while, and they both should go home. They both agreed, and Mei took it upon herself to drag Izuku all the way to her home to make babies. By the dragon. 5 hours later awoke Ryuko Tatsuma from her beauty sleep. "Oh," she said, not noticing that her voice is sounding different as she looked around the room. "I'm at hospital once again. Hopefully the hatchling is okay." Ryuko had a few times already been in a hospital, so it is nothing new for her to be in one. She moved a bit in the bed and noticed that something was feeling off. She then looked down on herself. Doesn't my bub seem to be much smaller?" She then trails off. "Wait, my whole body seems to have shrunken down by a lot," she exclaims as she looks at herself. "What the heck is going on?" She yells out loud as she quickly runs into the bathroom of her room to check herself up and sees that she looks like she did when she was 14. As she returned from the bathroom, other people had entered the room and were waiting for her. The detective, Naomi Sakachi, the underground hero, Eraserhead, and the youthful heroine, Recovery Girl. "Hello, Tatsuma-san. Naomasa greeted her as she re-entered the room. Recovery Girl simply decided to wave at her while Eraser Head nods to her. Naomasa then told her everything they had been able to find out. Apparently, this whole fiasco is partly due to the little girl Ryuko had saved. You see, her quirk is called Rewind. It turns the time on people she is touching back. So she de-ages them until they simply stop existing. Not that any of them would do anything different. To save her was the right choice for any hero. The next news only cemented that view in Ryuko's eyes, as there were also done some kind of experiments on the girl. They don't know why, but it is probably something to do with her quirk. They still aren't 100% sure how she had survived the blast of the girl's quirk, as it had nearly been in a fully charged state. Takuma Nui said that it was because of Dragon, Ryuko's quirk. According to her, has the attempted to stay transformed, canceled most of the de-aging out before both lost consciousnesses. The checkup Recovery Girl had done also brought rather strange finding Firth. So, Ryuko has indeed turned 14 again. They had still access to her old files from her school time to compare it to her today's self, and it turns out that these two didn't match at all. She is now slightly taller, has more muscles, and her body seems to be overall in a better condition than it was when she was 14 for the first time. Okay, that was rather informative, but I still have 2 questions. Ryuko began. Why is the yellow caterpillar here, and what am I going to do now? She asks while pointing to Eraserhead in his sleeping bag. Am I the only one that thinks that this was a really, and I mean really weak rhyme? Well, firstly, our good Aizawa is here because of the little girl that you have decided to bring along. Her quirk is strong, and she has little control over it. Recovery Girl explains, as she looks at a few papers, that along with the fact that she developed a strong fewer is the reason that she was put in isolation. Ryuko just looked at her and was about to speak up, but Recovery Girl answered before she could even ask. Look, I know that you feel sorry for the little hatchling, but she needs to rest and recover. Okay, that doesn't mean that I like it. Yeah, Aizawa said before he grinned slightly. And what you're going to do now, well, that is up to you. But we can give you 2 options that you are well in your right to decline. And what are those 2 options? Before I tell you, please remember that you are now in the body of a teenager and that we can allow you in your weakened state to continue being a hero. Aizawa told her with the truth behind his word getting to her. She sinks a bit into herself at those words, but nods nonetheless. Good that you understand. So you ate her. Had some house. May's father had been peacefully for once working on his car, a 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS Coupe. His daughter had gone out today to collect parts and maybe to try to abduce a few test subjects. Not her words, but what she meant when telling him her plans. He just has finished reinstalling the right rear brakes as he got a text message from his daughter. She said that she would bring a boy home, or as she had called him, a male test subject. Sadly, this wouldn't be the first time she had abducted someone as she had done, or at least tried it more than a dozen times, literally. So not even an hour later, Mate bursts into the garage and shows her father her newest conquest, a boy with green hair that introduces himself as Midoriya Izuku. He seems generally more confused than angry, like the others May had. Invited over. I should really do something about that. May's father thinks. Nah, he will figure a way out to flee, just like the others. He had tried before, and he will try again to talk his daughter out of abducting strangers from the street, but cut him some slag here. He has a life too, and she isn't harming anyone. Some even came back to get their cars checked up by him. So it is a win-win situation. Izuku was meanwhile torn between disappointment and positive surprise. On one hand was the fact that the pink-haired beauty with the rather large cough assets hadn't offered him to lose his V-card, which is kind of disappointing from the perspective of a corny teen. Not that. He would admit to being one, and relief, as he didn't think he could have done it with her, or well, maybe he could have, but that's a story for another time. On the other hand, are her genius inventions. She is showing him just as he thinks about it. Her father had given him a look that basically screamed, "You are not the first one," but he didn't mind too much at the moment. May was having a blast, and even I'll put it lightly. For the first time in her life, she has met someone who could actually follow the conversation, read, monologue, and didn't have to ask silly questions like, "Isn't that dangerous?" or "So we aren't going to F." Strangely, her father would kick those later ones always out, but that doesn't matter at the moment. The boy Meldo Mel me, Midas, was listening, and from the look on his face, she could deduce that he could indeed understand her and follow her ideas. So that concludes the first part of our little tour through my babies. Do you have any questions, Midas? May asks as she looks at him. Izuku's face gained a serious expression as he looked at her. Ugh, okay, last time had some sand. My name is Midoriya Izuku, okay? Simply nodding is enough. He asks her, speaking slowly so that she would understand him while sounding a little bit annoyed as she had already forgotten his name 4 times only on the way to her house. She did as told and nodded at his request, having understood his name. Good. I will cut you some slack here, and you're allowed to call me Izuku or even Izu if that is better for you. She again nodded. Good. He then smiled at her. Now that we have my name out of the way, I have a few questions about your inventions. Maybe you can even help me with some of the ideas I had for my quirk. Izuku, just to prove the point of being Izuku, pulled a notebook from somewhere and opened it to show Mai what he had planned for his costume. So they spent the next 2 hours exchanging ideas. Mai was constantly coming up with new and exciting ideas while Izuku would try, the key word is try, to keep it at a manageable level while he was writing down some she came up with. He didn't even start to try to make her stop, as he somehow already knew it would be a futile endeavor. They even started to make a design for Izuku's armor, along with a forearm guard for his right arm. But even this smaller piece turned out to be much more difficult to construct, with Izuku's quirk changing his size when he transforms. They still got the development started. Minus 10 months later, Izuku had been training relentlessly. In the past months, he had gone to extreme lengths to be in the best possible shape when a UA entrance exam rolls around, which is tomorrow, so that's good for him because he feels incredible. Well, tomorrow is the recommendation exam, but he still felt super. Breaking your limits over and over again is a good strategy as long as you don't hurt or injure yourself carrier ending. Izuku had convinced Mai, who is taking the recommendation entrance exam for the support course of UA tomorrow, and Bakugo to hang out for the day. Bakugo had also shown some of his notes to Mai, and to say she was delighted to hear she could build something that was intended to blow up would be a big understatement. In her words, explosions are cool. This also scored her a place on Bakugo's list of people he calls by their name. This list, as it says at the top, is a list of every person Bakugo calls by either their family or given name. On this list are Izuku, Mai, and Inko, whom he calls Auntie Inko. It's a rather sad thing if you only have 2 friends, but hey, they are best friends at this point in time, and I am not here to judge. I would end up being a hypocrite. On another note, Izuku had been officially promoted to Mai's official test subject for life, which basically means that he would test the majority of all universal type gear she would work on, along with the fact that he will showcase a prototype of his costume that Mai produced to the judges at the exam at UA. Ichiwa Izukume, Bakugo called out to them. Izuku had decided that they would take a break to relax one last time before the exam. He had decided they would meet in a cat cafe. Izuku and Mai were already sitting at the table. Izuku had dragged Mai here as she would never have gone on her own to a cafe when they want to meet there. Hey, Katsuki. Izuku answered him as Bakugo walked up to the table with his friends and took a seat at their table. Mai grumbled something about how unfair it was that she also must be here, but both decided to ignore her for now, so she simply got back to her cake. So what kind of cake have you 2 gotten? Bakugo asks as he sees that both had already ordered something. Izuku quietly passes Bakugo the menu, while Mai takes this opportunity to speak up. I have chocolate cake with chocolate chip cookies and hot chocolate, Mai tells him proudly. Izuku and Bakugo just sweat drops a bit at that. They know that Mai loves chocolate, but it was sometimes a bit extreme. At least it goes to the right parts of her. They both think at the same time as Mai eats another piece of her cake. Yes, she has ordered a complete cake, while both glancing shortly at her. Hasets. Izuku then decides to end the awkward silence and speaks up. I have peach cake with iced vanilla coffee. Izuku simply told Bakugo he had chosen to get 2 pieces of cake. From one piece was already taken a bite. A waiter then walks up to them and asks Bakugo what he would like to eat. Then I have 2 pieces of the orange cake and a black tea. Both Mai and Izuku look at him wide-eyed, causing Bakugu to blush a little bit. W what? He asks them, still being embarrassed about the stares he receives from his friends. Oh, nothing, Izuku says and then grins slightly. It's only that Mr. Expulsions has chosen the least spicy food on the menu. Bakugu is about to answer, but as if on cue, a white cat jumps on Izuku's lap while purring slightly, causing Bakugu and Mei to lose their train of thought. Izuku sees their faces and chuckles a bit, before answering the unasked question. I'm a regular here, and the cat's like me, you know, because of my quirk. He then pulls the cat into his arms, while patting her slightly. Both now can see the cat better. She has white fur with gray fur on her paws, and black fur at the tip of her tail. This here is Tora. You see, the owner let me name her, because they like me so much. He tells them after he sees their faces after hearing her name. And when you are so loved by them, why is only one here? Bakugu asks him while looking a bit jealous at him for having a cat in his arms. Animals usually don't like being near him because of his explosive sweat. Izuku sets her back down onto his lap before he answers. You see, I made a deal with all the cats here. After this one time, they all went out of their way to come to be patted by me. Basically, the first one to get to me gets to lay on my lap for my stay here. The others have to respect that. Bakugu and Mei just start at him before the waiter, with Bakugu's tea and cake, rips them out of it. Here you go. I hope you enjoy it, he says before he leaves, Bakugu giving him a small thanks. They then eat their respective cakes while chatting about unimportant things like the weather or how excited they are to finally have a shot at getting into UA. They then came on a rather important topic by pure accident, the retirement of the Dragoon hero, Ryukyu. She was at the time on the best way into the top 10 with being ranked at number 11, only barely behind the magic hero, Majestic. But many had considered her one of the strongest heroes and the strongest female hero, who could even go head to head with people like the number 2, Endeavor, or even the symbol of peace, All Might. Her retirement was truly a shocker at the time. While they were talking about her, Izuku remembered a rather strange incident with a girl he had rescued about 1 month after the sludge villain incident. Flashback. 9 months ago, Izuku was again walking home from school as he came again to a stop under the bridge the villain had attacked. He looked around and even found the dent/crack the manhole cover made when it landed beside him. He grinned slightly at that as he remembered All Might's words after he had captured the villain for the first time. You are pretty wired, you know that. A voice says next to him. Izuku's instincts kick in, and he jumps about 2 meters away from the position he has been before the person that had just spoken basically directly into his ear. Whoa, he calls out as he lands. Izuku then looks at the person and sees the girl he had rescued. It is you. I'm glad that you are okay, he says with a grin as the girl still looks at him. Yeah, thanks to you, Midoriya-san. My name is Kaida, and I want to thank you personally for saving me, she says with a small smile. But you're kind of wired. I mean, you look at a crack in the street and suddenly start to grin at it. She didn't need to say anything else as Izuku began to sweat. Good first impression, dumbass, he thinks to himself as he tries to hide his face in his hands. No, it isn't like that, he responds. He then looks up from his hands. You see, I was attacked here by a villain, and the hero who had rescued me had encouraged me to follow my dream and that he would await the day I reach it. Izuku explains. I take it your dream is to become a hero? She asks him, and he nods simply. Oh, that's good. Like, can you imagine you want to become a villain? You are attacked by one before you become one yourself, and a hero incurring you to follow the dreams that just happens to be a villain yourself. Izuku just stares at her for a bit, but decided to politely nod at her question. Yeah, no need to fake that you know what I was going at. To be honest, it sounded a lot better in my head, she tells him and then looks at her phone. Okay, I need to go. Hopefully, we see each other again sometime in the future. Bye, Midoriya-san, she says as she leaves. Bye, Kaida-san, he says as he waves a bit at her before he continues his way home. Flashback. Yendi. Izuku, hey nerd. Bakugu calls out to him, snapping him out of his daydreaming/memory. Are you even listening, nerd? Yes, of course, Izuku blurted out. Bakugu just raises eyebrows at that, while Mei keeps eating her cake. Izuku just gave up and sighed. Yeah, okay, I didn't listen to you. I was kind of lost in my thoughts. Something interesting? May asks, before eating a chocolate chip cookie. Nah, only the encounter with Kaida-sen. His friends acknowledged that, and they then moved on to the next topic. They simply talked, and were enjoying their cake and hot beverages, or in Izuku's case, a cold beverage, until Izuku's phone reminded him with an alarm that he needs to go home. He will be having a busy day tomorrow, as he has also been a recommendation for the UA entrance exam, along with Bakugu, from none other than All Might himself. Bakugu had said after they talked about it, "I don't need the help of any other. I will prove that I have what it takes to be a hero on my own." Izuku understood that reasoning, but he had still taken the offer, as this is positively a once-in-a-lifetime chance. The next day, at UA, So here he is. Izuku is now standing in front of UA a week before the normal entrance exam and on the day of the recommended entrance exam. He decides to not waste any more time simply staring at the enormous building and quickly enters. Luckily, it has large signs guiding him to the room where the recommended are instructed to gather before the exam. As he enters the room, all eyes turn to him. They all have their own places and nobody is talking to each other. The message is clear for Izuku after seeing that we are all competing in this exam, an unhealthy mindset for heroes or those that want to be ones, but nonetheless he understood this point of view. He took a deep breath before closing the door behind him and stepping fully into the room. Many were glaring at him, mainly because he was their newest competition. Others simply studied him with their gazes, trying to analyze potential weaknesses. The atmosphere in the room was far from enjoyable for him. Normal humans can see when someone is staring at him, but with his quirk, this is turned up to max level. Izuku looked around and noticed some interesting competition. A boy with his hair evenly split between two colors, white on his right side and crimson red on his left. Maybe a side effect of his quirk. Izuku theorizes as he looks at him. He then looks further and sees a girl with her long black hair bound into a ponytail. She is rather pretty, but overall rather plain-looking compared to the other competition. Interesting. She along with the seaweed girl. He thinks as he looks over to a girl with long seaweed green hair that also looks kind of like seaweed, are one of the only ones who don't try to melt me with their stares. Izuku then decides to speak with them after the exam, as they could mentally prepare themselves at the moment, and he didn't want to disturb them. Just then another person entered the room and drew the whole attention to him. Many recognized him by just looking at him. It is none other than the voice hero, Present Mike. "Okay, everyone," he began loudly. Everyone just covered their ears to be safe. "Please follow me. I will bring you to your exam room." As only 20 people were recommended, and 3 have already been selected as unworthy before even setting a foot into UA, we will take a normal classroom for this exam. He explained, shocking many. To hear that 3 had already been disqualified from the exam was quite the shocker. "Aim, sir." One brave participant raised his hand to get the hero's attention. Mike looked at him, and he continued, "If we are allowed to ask, why have those 3 been disqualified?" He asked, and the whole room was looking at Mike to get the answer. How that is simple. We look into the files of everyone that is recommended, and only heroes that work closely with UA together or in the top 50 hero ranking, or have special approval from Principal Nizu are allowed to recommend students along with our suppliers. Mike began to explain. The files of those recommended are then sent to Nizu, and he would do an in-depth analysis of the potential students. By those 3 came for that they had done some rather unheroic things. I think we'll leave it at that. But those things came to light, and Nizu personally contacted the heroes who had recommended them and told them about it. Shortly afterward were the recommendations for those 3 withdrawn. He finished, and the boy who had asked thanked Mike for the honest answer. The group then continued to a classroom with a giant red 1A on the classroom door. "So here we are. Maybe this is even your future classroom when you make it into UA." Mike then opened the door and guided the 17 participants into the room and tells them to take a set and sit down. They did as they were told in. Silence while waiting for the test to start. Shortly after they took the sets came a homeless-looking man with a stack of papers in his hands along with the pro-hero Vlad King into the room. The homeless man and Mike shared a look and both then nodded to each other. Mike left the room, while the homeless guy took position behind the teacher's desk. Vlad walked in the back of the class, and set on a table specially prepared for him. Hello, everyone. My name is Izawa Shoto, and along with my colleague will we make sure that none of you is able to cheat. He began in a serious tone. If you're caught trying to cheat, you will be thrown out imminently, and you're also not allowed to take the normal entrance exam. He then quickly explains that the writing portion will be 3 hours, and then will be thy physical exam part additional 2 hours long. And so began the entrance exam for recommended students of the best hero school in Japan, and Izuku had begun his 1,000 miles journey to become the #1 hero. This plays CA 4 months after Ryuko's de-aging. Ryuko had done many dangerous things before, but this thing she's about to do is easily the most dangerous thing yet to come. She would meet with her intern Hato Nijire. Ryuko is waiting in a meeting room at UA for her trainee, who has also grown on her, to show up. Then the door opened and Nijire walked in. She closed the door. Hello, Nijire. Ryuko simply says, and they both stare at each other for a short amount of time in silence. Nijire then smiles brightly before she jumps to the de-aged pro with her arms spread out. Ryukyu, she calls out as she pulls her into a hug. I was so worried. I heard that something had happened to you from the others, but I couldn't get anything accrued, and then you announced that you are retiring. Now a few tears like from Nijire's eyes. I am so happy that nothing has happened to you. Ryuko, now breaking out of her shook, begins to pad the girl, who has started to see her as a big sister back. She knew that she should have told Nijire sooner, but both Nizu and Izawa had strongly advised against it. After about 5 minutes, Nijire sets up again. So, Ryukane-san, how old are you now? Nijire asks. I'm 14 years old now. Ryuko told her, and she could see the sparkles appear in Nijire's eyes. Wait, you could be my cute little kohai now. Nijire beamed, and Ryuko had a smirk at that. Oh yeah, I will totally become your kohai, she said with sarcasm dripping from her voice. But and let's be real here. The recommendation exam, at least the writing portion, was not as hard as Izuku had thought, which can only mean two things. Firstly, he has blown the exam by simply reading over words that would change answers to some questions, or his good grades as junior high really meant he was intelligent and the hours spent learning were really worth something. Even if his logic decided that it must be the first answer, the fact that he was among those that would take the practical portion told him that the second answer was right. So Izuku was now standing outside on one of the UA training fields with the rest of the recommended students, which numbers had now dropped down to 15, including Izuku. His nervousness was already at its maximum about the first test, but now came his second part. Ken then begins to speak and explains what the practical part of the exam is going to be about. Okay, listen up everyone. He began while talking loudly so that everybody could hear him. I will now explain how the first part of the partial exam is going to play. You all will take part in an obstacle race in one of UA's mock cities. He then holds up a watch-like device with a screen instead of clock face. With those watches will you navigate the city. But be careful, it will only show in which direction you need to go, and there will be no street plan. The finish line will be about 1 kilometer away from the start line, but you will have to take detours as there will be no direct path. He then put the watch away. Now on to the rules. We are on privately owned ground. That means we will give you all the permission to use your quirks in the exam, but it is strictly prohibited to attack others with it. But other than attacking other participants, everything goes. He told them, and the potential students all nod at that. Oh, but it is allowed to obstruct others with your quirks. He told them with a slight grin. Izawa spoke up next. So now to the groups. We will split you into 3 groups with 4 participants each and 1 group with 3. First and second place on the finish line will be advancing to the second part of the practical exam. We will logically only tell those who pass the first part what happens in the second, as we told only you about the first part of the practical exam, because you have passed the writing portion. Izawa explains, and many nods in understanding. Vlad King, the other pro hero that was supervising them, then spoke up. Okay, I will call out your names. Those who have been called, please come forward, pick up a watch, then your watch will show a number, and in that group will you be. Are there any questions? Nobody said anything, so they started. So 1 round call later, he is in group 3 along with the black-haired ponytail girl, Momo Yairozu. They all gather at the start line, as they make themselves ready. Izuku makes himself ready by transforming both his arms and legs into their tiger form while a tail grows out. The start signal then ranges throughout the Mook City. Instantaneously are both Izuku and Momo on the run. Izuku making use of parkour running while Momo... Wait, where did she get the jetpack? Izuku thinks as he looks up while hearing a noise overhead. He decides to ask her later, but for now, he needs to focus on the exam. With the teachers, as Izuku was climbing over many different buildings to get to the finish line, the teachers were watching the whole spectacle of his group over cameras, 8 mounted on buildings or placed in drones. Many sensors along the city, along with a computer to convert the different perspectives of the cameras, made it possible for them to have a live holographic 3D model of the city. The students taking the test were white dots in this blue city with the finish line being a red beacon. Haha, those two are indeed interesting. A small, humanoid mouse comments as he points to the dot in the air while the other dot just jumped from a roof and into another skyscraper. What the problem child did was rather unlogical. To jump through a glass window will only have negative consequences in the future. A hobo-looking man counters the mouse as he looks to the other 2 dots being far behind those other 2. Eraser, you are aware that all glass in our school, Mock City, or not is made out of the special glass that even a 20mm cannon can't break and can scratch diamond. A block-headed man with cement-colored skin comments. Just then the window Izuku had used to enter was shown. Holy SHD! The yellow-crested cockatoo exclaims as he sees the window. It wasn't smashed, but instead cut up. The little listener has done some good cutting there. They look like a wild animal has used its claws to cut them. The human forklift says as he looks at the glass lying on the floor inside of the building. Back to Izuku. Our hero is sprinting up the stairs of the skyscraper on all 4. His destiny is the roof to get to the roof for a better overview of the area. As he reached it, he simply jumped through the wooden door. After reaching the top, Izuku looks at his watch to see where he needs to go. So he quickly searches for buildings that would work as landmarks before backing up to the little rooftop house for the stairs. He goes into a running position and uses the house as a start block before pressing himself with his arms into the air while his legs push him forward. While he is airborne through the start, he transforms in his full tiger form and runs with full speed towards the edge of the building and jumps to the next, bending the railing as he lands in his full form on it. Izuku continues to jump from rooftop to rooftop, breaking things as he goes. He then notices that the buildings get smaller as he reaches a suburb in the Mook City. So Izuku jumps down from the roof he is on, landing on a cabbage cart in the process, but Izuku doesn't pay much attention to the destroyed cart and simply looks at the watch that is still around his waist. After a quick look at where he needs to go, he simply continues his run. As he reaches the finish line, a red flag that's hanging on a pole, he sees one other person already there. This person turns out to be none other than Momo Yaoyorozu. All participants of Area 3, follow your watches towards the nearest exit. Oh hello. The giant white tiger greets Momo, who turns around and sees the massive tiger standing there a few feet away from her. So she does the only sensible thing and jumps back while getting in a fighting position. Wait. Izuku says as he transforms back into a human, now wearing only his pants and jacket as the rest got destroyed by his transformation. He quickly counters the shoe shortage by transforming his feet into claws. Okay, now for real, he says to himself before turning back to Momo, who had relaxed by now. Hi, I am Midoriya Izuku. It is nice to meet you, he said with a smile on his face. Greetings, she says and instantly blushes. I am Yaoyorozu Momo. It is nice to meet you too. Izuku simply smiles and they continue talking on their way to an entrance. With the teachers, the gathered teachers of UA were all standing in the observation room, chatting about the events that were going on while Group 2 has taken the exams. Okay, drones will return now to their docking ports, and we will get the most important pictures and videos in just a sec. The human forklift says, as they were now shown the pictures. One of them being a white tiger about the size of Brown Bear was shown. An interesting quirk, he has Yagi says, and the rest of the room just looks at him in confusion. You know this old mentor out of these space movies that came out in the late 20th century? They keep staring, and he finally gives up, with Izuku and Momo. Both enter the waiting area. The other winners of groups 1 and 2 are already there. The girl with seaweed green hair from the beginning is also here. AHM, hello. Izuku calls out a bit awkward to the 4 people already there. 3 girls and 1 boy then turn towards Izuku and Momo, who are walking up to them. I am Midoriya Izuku, and this is Dash Iruza Momo. Nice to meet you all, and we're the winners from group 3. Izuku says, HH, hello green. The girl with seaweed green hair says as smiles at him with her pointy shark tooth. I am Setsuna Tokage. I am the first place of group 2. Juzo Hananuki, it is a pleasure to meet you. I was in second place in the first group. Juzo says he is the only other boy. He has ash blonde hair and now lips or anything else so that his that are visible along his whole mouth. AHM, hello, I'm Melissa Shield. I was the first place in group 1. Melissa is a blonde girl with blue eyes. I am from the reunited states. Izuku thinks shortly before looking at her again. Wait, are you the daughter of David Shield? He asks, a bit overly excited, and she begins to blush. Suddenly he freezes in place as he slowly turns to Momo. Wait, you said your name was Yairuzu. Isn't that the name of one of the most important businesses that produce support gear? Now Momo was blushing a bit because she hadn't told him. The other 3 students had just started, mainly the 3rd girl, who hadn't had a chance to introduce herself yet. She has red hair that is shadowing her left eye, but the visible right eye is yellow eyes. She is rather tall with nearly 2 meters, but doesn't say anything. As Izuku continues to gush over these 2 celebrities he has just met, a little smile forms on her face and also on the face of the others. Oh, sorry, I didn't let you introduce yourself, Izuku says as he stops and turns to the tall redhead. He is rubbing the back of his head while smiling at her. Oh, keen problem. I am Emily Schwartz and was the second place at her second group. Emily began, occasionally slipping into German. Sorry, I am from Germany and my Japanese isn't the best yet. I can understand most things, but I slip into German then and now. The others simply wave her off and said that it was okay and that it made her unique. In a good way. Do you think more need to go? Juzo asked, and all thought for a minute before Emily answered. It's think that we will at least lose half of those already here. They wouldn't make another part if they didn't want to at least reduce the numbers of recommended students some more. Emily said, and the other nodded along with her thoughts. I have heard that there are only 4 seats per year for recommended students. Momo piped in. Worst case, I will take to normal exam to get in. Izuku said, and the other began to look at him. It is not like it is forbidden, and I think it would show them my ambition some more. He then gained an evil glint in his eyes. But I will give my all to beat you all up if I must to. The others began to sweat at the sudden change in tone before Izuku began to chuckle. Just give it your all. The others quickly agreed as the final batch walked in. The candy cane teen and the tall teen. The taller one was glaring at the other, who glared at everything. They were closely followed by the only member of the staff truly fit to deal with teens, the R-rated hero, Midnight. As she arrived, she used her WHB to gain the attention of everyone present. Hello everyone. I am the R-rated hero, Midnight, but please call me Midnight or Kiyama-sensei. She introduced herself before they all moved to a training field for the second part of the exam. Okay, now on to the 2 part of the exam. This will be quite simple. Each of you will do one one-on-one fight, and the winner gets the spot. The winner is decided by me. You need to A, to knock your opponent out, immobilize him, or make him admit defeat. This may sound unfair or unreasonable, but I tell you it is quite effective. Only those with drive, the power to bag it up, and a little bit of luck can bring it wide in the world of pro heroes. She explains, and the hopefuls nod along. Oh, and one more thing for those that don't make it now. You will get a small bonus if you decide to take the normal entire exam, but I'm not allowed to tell you anything about it. They all gathered around her, so that the 2 fighters can have the whole field as an arena. Midnight pulled a tablet from somewhere and pressed the button for the randomizer. Okay, I have the first fighters. Would Shield, Melissa, and Yurashi and Asa please would move to the field? I will give you the signal to start when you are ready. Midnight told them, and both moved to the field. Inasa is the tall boy who kept glaring at the candy cane boy. Even now, he kept on glaring at him and ignoring the opponent in front of him, which kind of annoyed Melissa. Oi! She then called out to Inasa, I am your opponent. If you have a problem with him, fight that out after I am done with you. She roars at him. Inasa then turns to Melissa with a smile on his face as he bows to her, hitting his head on the ground. You are completely right. I am sorry, Shield-san. He shouts with high energy in his voice. His mood did a complete 180 as he turned away from the candy cane boy. Melissa and Inasa were now standing across from each other, both highly focused on the other. You could feel the energy that was in the air until Midnight's shouts begin, and both are off. Melissa is clad in black lightning, while Inasa covers himself in a whirlwind as he begins to fly. Both move apart before the faster Melissa does a quick sidestep of one of Inasa's wind-bust shots and then dashes at him. She then throws her right arm up as black energy tendrils shoot out of it and upwards in one fluid motion. She then brings her arm down so that those tendrils rush at Inasa. In response to that, he quickly diverted his wind so that it would shield him from the tendrils by forming a big tornado around him. The others were impressed with the fight of those two. It was quite literally an awesome show of strength and intelligence as one move was countered, only to use the opponent's move to their own advantage. The fight was already going 5 minutes, and none seems to get the upper hand in this intense battle. Suddenly, the lightning around Melissa seems to cease as she gains speed, and her attacks also seem to become stronger. She then brings both of her hands up as metal half-tubes extend from her gauntlets. She brings the back of her hands together as they begin to glow, and she claps. For the fraction of a second, nothing is heard until boom, a loud supersonic boom shocks them, as a shot of super compressed air flies towards Inasa, who can't dodge in time, and is hit by it in the chest with full force. He then falls a bit as he loses control over his wind before he is suddenly captured by Melissa's black tendrils. Winner! Shield Melissa! Midnight calls out a bit louder than necessary because of the supersonic boom. Melissa then walks up to the others with a smile on her face, while dragging the still unconscious and in black tendrils warped Inasa behind her. We will take Inasa to the nurse's office to make sure he hasn't broken anything. You can still watch if you want to, Melissa. Midnight told her, and she nodded with a smile and stood by the others again. Okay, we will not wait long, and Todoroki Shoto. Midoriya, Izuku, please step forward. You're going next. Both quickly complied and moved onto the field. Izuku simply falls in his fighting stance, arms and legs transforming into slim white tiger parts and a tail extending from his tailbone. The look on his face said that he was excited to fight. Shoto, on the other hand, glared at the tiger boy. His whole appearance was somehow off in Izuku's eyes. The scar on his left side and the glare he was giving him all seemed off, like he isn't himself at the moment. So Izuku could do the only thing that his thoughts allowed him, provocate the youngest Todoroki. Hey, that is a nice glare you have there. I take you to want to be like Endeavor if you make it into the hero course. A noble goal indeed. Izuku said, sarcasm heavily dripping from his voice. This got Izuku his desired reaction. I'm not like this man. The son of the aforementioned number 2 hero said, while intensifying his glaring at Izuku. You do look kind of like him. You even got the same glare he processes. Are you related to him? Izuku shots again at Shoto, who simply turns to Midnight. Can you please start? He asks her, clearly enraged by what Izuku had said. I'm all right. Start. She calls out, and the whole field is quickly frozen by the Todoroki, trapping Izuku inside of a giant glacier, making him unable to move. W winner to Pacifico. Midnight calls out as she is shivering from the sudden temperature drop from the ice Shoto had created. Just the cracks begin to form on the ice, and with a loud boom, emerged Izuku from the glacier. Finally out is so freaking cooled. He yells. His complete body is covered in fur, but he is still shivering. Todoroki was already leaving, not bothering to look back at his opponent. A short glacier cleaning later. Thanks for helping clean the glacier, Midoriya-san, but I need you to go to Recovery Girl and then to leave. You have officially lost, and are not allowed to witness any of the other fights. Might Knight says with a heavy sigh. But I do hope you will make it in by using the normal exam. Hopefully, we will see each other at the beginning of the new school year, she says and winks at him. Izuku turns to Midnight and bows to her. Thank you for your kind words. He then turns to the others and smirks at them. I hope you all will give it your best, and that I am able to see you regardless of the outcome of the exam, he says before biting his goodbye. So this is UA. I already like it here, he thinks as he walks towards the nurse's office. This marks the end of part 1 of What If Deku Inherited White Tiger Quirk. A big thanks to Dragon Gam 3 for granting the permission to feature this amazing fanfiction. Please like the video and subscribe to Deku Universe for more interesting stories. Thank you, and see you soon.